I was over the moon when my high school sweetheart Liam proposed. We'd been inseparable for years, and marrying him felt like the most natural thing in the world. He was a soldier, strong and dedicated, and I was so proud to become a military wife. We had a beautiful, simple wedding, surrounded by our closest friends and family. Everything was perfect. I was ready to start our forever. The first few years were a whirlwind of moving from one military base to another. It wasn't always easy, being the new girl in town every couple of years, but I was determined to make it work. I threw myself into creating a warm, loving home for Liam to return to after his long deployments. I joined spouse groups, volunteered on base, and did everything I could to build a community and support my husband's career. Through it all, our love felt unshakable. I was living the life I'd always dreamed of. Then, one sunny afternoon, my perfect world shattered. I was at the base's family services office, updating some paperwork. The clerk, a kind-faced woman named Sarah, was helping me with a routine benefits update. She clicked through screens, humming a little tune. Suddenly, she paused. Her humming stopped. She frowned at the monitor, her brow furrowed in confusion. "That's strange," she murmured, more to herself than to me. My heart started to beat a little faster. "What is it? Is there a problem?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up at me, her expression a mix of pity and bewilderment. "Well, Mrs. Davis," she began, her voice hesitant, "according to the official record here, Liam is already married." I stared at her, my mind refusing to process the words. "Married? That's impossible. I'm his wife." She pointed to the screen. "I know, dear. That's what's so odd. The system lists a Sarah Davis as his spouse, registered 3 years before your marriage date." Sarah Davis. The name echoed in my head. My name. But it wasn't me. Someone else had my name and was listed as my husband's wife. I felt the floor drop out from under me. A wave of nausea washed over me as the clerk's words sank in. Another wife. Another Sarah Davis. My entire marriage, my entire life, suddenly felt like a lie. The clerk must have seen the color drain from my face because she quickly offered me a glass of water. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "This has to be a mistake. A clerical error." But was it? A cold dread seeped into my bones. Liam was deployed, unreachable for weeks. I was completely alone with this devastating information. Who was this other Sarah Davis? Why was she on my husband's military record? Was he living a double life? My mind raced with terrifying possibilities. I went home in a daze. Our cozy little apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt like a prison. Every photo of us smiling, every little trinket he'd brought back from his travels, now seemed to mock me. I spent days poring over every document I could find, our marriage certificate, old letters, anything that could offer a clue. But there was nothing. Liam's life, as I knew it, was a carefully constructed facade, and I had just discovered the gaping crack in its foundation. The waiting was pure torture. Every ring of the phone made me jump, hoping it was him, yet dreading the conversation we had to have. The other military spouses on the base, women I considered my friends, now seemed like strangers. How could I talk to them? How could I explain that I might not even be legally married to the men I loved? I felt so isolated, trapped in a nightmare of my own. My search for answers became an obsession. I started digging online, searching for any trace of another Sarah Davis connected to Liam. My late-night internet searches led me down rabbit holes of public records and social media profiles. Then, I found her, a woman with my name, living in a small town near one of Liam's first duty stations. Her profile picture showed a woman with a kind smile, standing next to a man who looked shockingly familiar, but it wasn't Liam. Confusion turned into a relentless determination. This couldn't be a simple mistake. I decided I had to find this other Sarah Davis. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Packing a small bag, I felt a strange sense of purpose I hadn't felt in weeks. I was no longer just a heartbroken wife. I was a detective on the most important case of my life. I drove for hours, my stomach churning with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. Finally, I arrived at the address I'd found online, a quaint little house with a white picket fence. My heart pounded in my chest as I walked up the path and knocked on the door. It swung open to reveal the woman from the photograph. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw me. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice gentle. Taking a deep breath, I held out a copy of the military record. "My name is Sarah Davis," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "And I think we need to talk about my husband." "And yours." Her friendly expression dissolved into one of utter shock. She stepped back, inviting me inside. As I crossed the threshold, I knew my life was about to change forever. We sat in her living room, two strangers connected by one man's name and a baffling military document. She began to tell me her story. Her husband, Mark, was also a soldier. He looked uncannily like Liam. They could have been brothers. It turned out Mark had a brother, a twin brother, who had passed away years ago. His name was Liam. My Liam. Suddenly, a new possibility emerged, one even more shocking than infidelity. Could there have been a mix-up of epic proportions, a case of mistaken identity that had entangled our lives in a web of bureaucratic errors and hidden family secrets? Together, we started piecing together the puzzle. We discovered that the twins, Mark and Liam, had enlisted together. The military, in a tragic administrative blunder, had merged parts of their records. The other, Sarah Davis, Mark's wife, had been mistakenly linked to my Liam's file. The relief that washed over me was immense, but it was quickly replaced by a new set of questions. Why had my Liam never mentioned he had a twin brother? Why the secrecy? The truth, when it finally came out, was heartbreaking. Liam had been estranged from his family for years. The pain of losing his twin, compounded by a family rift, had led him to erase that part of his past. He never spoke of Mark, never acknowledged his own twin, because it was too painful to bear. He wasn't a liar or a cheat. He was a man carrying a secret grief so heavy he couldn't share it, even with me. When Liam finally came home, the reunion was emotional and fraught with tension. I confronted him, not with anger, but with the story of my journey and the woman I had met. Seeing the shock and then the raw pain on his face, I understood everything. We talked for hours, for days. He finally opened up about his brother, his family, and the guilt he carried. It was the hardest conversation of our lives, but also the most important. In the end, this bizarre and painful discovery didn't tear us apart. It brought us closer. We worked with the military to correct the record, a long and tedious process. More importantly, we began the process of healing. Liam reconnected with Mark, and for the first time, I felt like I truly knew the man I had married, all of him, including the broken parts. Our foundation wasn't a lie. It was just incomplete. Now, we were finally building our future on the whole truth. My journey to find the other wife on my husband's military record led me to uncover a hidden past, and in doing so, it saved my marriage and gave us a new beginning.